UAW strike impact on prices, production, and dealer inventory. So yes, the UAW strike does have a direct impact on inventory, of course. If they're not building any and we're still selling some, inventory goes down. And when inventory gets too low, prices go way up. We saw that in the last 3 years. But you'll get advice in this show. Subscribe to the channel because we're going to tell you how you shouldn't accept paying and why you shouldn't accept overpaying any vehicle. Most vehicles should, and a lot of them do have rebates right now, but a lot of dealers won't talk about those rebates. They might have a $5,000 rebate and they give you $2,000 more for your trade and say, hey, we're giving you the best price on your trade in town, or maybe even $3,000 and say something like, well, that's the price you truly wanted. And that's retail price. That's the price we're going to resell the vehicle for. We'll ask for more than what we're paying you. We'll sell it for $3 more. So you're getting a heck of a deal, a steal of a deal. So why wouldn't you buy the vehicle? And then when you're out of objections, naturally, they get you to say yes a whole lot of times. Sales technique. Get the person, psychological technique in anything. Get someone in a pattern of saying yes, and then ask the big question. That's the hard one to say yes to. Well, they're in a pattern of saying yes. They'll say yes again.
So it's like when you've been arrested by a police officer, you just say, I won't talk. I won't talk at all.
You're better not to talk. And maybe when you're negotiating a car deal, maybe you shouldn't talk very much and be willing to walk away from the deal, because sometimes getting a suspiciously high amount for your trade is a tall tale sign of actually getting ripped off. Often I see it on a regular basis, people getting $2,000, $3,000 more for your trade, but at a manufacturer that has a $5,000 rebate, and they never get to see any of that rebate. So the dealer keeps the difference. So I'm here to help out. Let's talk about the UAW strike and what this is going to do for prices, production, and dealer inventory. We've got the United Auto Workers, also known as the UAW for short. And for the rest of this episode, to save my voice, Marie just got her voice back this week, today, basically. So the strike against Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, so UAW, they're striking. It's affecting those three brands, those three manufacturers, but mostly, and not at all of their U.S. factories. So if your vehicle is getting built at, in Mexico, which Stellantis and GM, I think unfortunately, build a lot of trucks down there. And I'm not saying in Mexican manufacturing, they have built good vehicles before. The Fusion is fantastic. It's well put together. The Mach-E, I think, is better. It's better assembled than most Teslas. It's better painted than most Teslas. Most Teslas have trouble keeping the paint on them, so get them wrapped. It's not a bad company to get. Just know everyone has their weaknesses and their strengths. You buy a Tesla, get it wrapped. That paint likes to come off after 2 winters, start to come off after 2 winters. But I think it's unfortunate for our economies. Now, it could be a lot worse, production going to outside of Canada and the U.S., because the United States, Canada, and the U.S. really benefit each other quite a bit. And those three countries working together is probably going to be the secret sauce to success, to fighting against production going to China and India. And it also helps us be economically very powerful on the world scale. There's value to working together, but your production of, let's say, a Ford Maverick or a Mach-E is far less affected because those plants aren't going to shut down because they're not unionized. However, less parts can be going to them, and production gets slowed down. And Ford has actually had to lay off, and will probably be laying off more people this week because of plant closures. Now, this past Friday, to give you a little rundown of how the strike's been going, generally when things have closed, it's been on a Friday. Now, this Friday, nothing got closed for Stellantis,
Good.
GMC, or Ford. But CEO President, Mr. Sean Fain, did mention that things could get closed down any day of the week, like the Kentucky truck plant that got closed down on a Wednesday.
But that's a good news for now. It's calm. And do you know if they they choose the plant specifically that will affect more the fabricant that they close?
Absolutely.
Or it's just like that?
Absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic question. UAW, I think, in order to have more impact later on, smart. They realize that if you close all the factories down right off the beginning, their $827 million pot, their savings, they take every week, they take money off workers' pay for times like this. They have roughly $827 million, you could say, in the striking bank, which means at $500 per week per employee, if they strike all 150,000 employees at once, they only have 11 weeks. And I think they probably realized that the automakers could last longer than 11 weeks because Stellantis, GM, and Ford have basically right around 2 months worth of inventory on their lots. So at first they only closed basically, you could say, a plant, one factory for each. Ford, it was the Ford Bronco factory. So Ford Bronco production has been at zero for basically a month. So Ford Bronco, we're talking about 2024 Ford Bronco. We're lucky we got our 2023 at MSRP. Our 2024 Ford Ranger Raptor that we ordered is on standby. Nothing is getting built. However, let's talk about this a little more. So right now, Ford has 3 plants down, my apologies. The parts suppliers for GM and Stellantis, many of the parts suppliers distribution network is down. So that affects you if you've got a recall or you need a repair on your vehicle. It might take quite a while to get your part for your vehicle.
So it didn't affect only the new cars, it's the used car too.
That's an excellent point, and I appreciate you pointing that out because I don't think about making things clear.
It will hurt more.
Yeah.
It's logical that
It'll
they do that.
hurt more, and they can strike. They can last for a lot longer because they didn't strike everyone at once. That would have been only 11 weeks. How they've set it up thus far, if they continue at this pace, they could be off for, 6 to 8 months.
That's a lot.
And Ford and GM and Stellantis, sometimes they're being forced to lay off workers because they need to slow down production. We'll get to that news in just a moment. Right now, the sticky points we could say, there's a couple of key issues. And because of those key issues, it's about future EV production and worker job guarantees, because the workers, UAW is worried that as we move towards EV, everything could get automated and they just get completely replaced. Not even jobs going to China. We're now worried about people being replaced altogether. And they want to get back the pension plans that they had back in 2007 that they willingly gave up in 2008 to help save the big three. So as a result, the UAW decided to expand its strike recently against the Blue Oval, and that was the Kentucky truck plant. That was the week before last. Last week, nothing happened on the Friday, and that's where they build the Ford Super Duty, the Ford Expedition, and Lincoln Navigator. Now, those are all very high. Those are the highest profit margin models at Ford. So to answer your question really properly, are they closing certain factories down to have more or less of an effect? Yes, less of an effect on how much it costs them to be on strike so that they can be on strike longer, and they hit Ford in between the legs. I'm talking about the pocketbook. No, I'm talking about the pocketbook. Men leave their wallets in their front pocket, and that's where the UAW has kicked Ford, right between the legs in the wallet region. So they're also building the Lincoln Navigator. Heck, a Lincoln Navigator now is basically 123,000 Canadian dollars. It's clearly a high profit vehicle. It's not $80,000 more than a Ford Escape because it uses 30% more metal. It's 3 times the price. So obviously, we don't need to bust out the calculator here. We know they've kicked them in their high profit margin areas. A very sensitive area, because for a company and a CEO, it's all about dollars. However, in the auto market, it would appear that the biggest losers become the biggest winners. Look at Lucid. Lucid is currently the biggest loser on the market. They lose, according to their shared public info, they lose $338,000 every unit that Lucid sells and delivers. So they're losing billions and billions of dollars every year. They're very far away from making a dollar. A Lucid vehicle, let's say it's about 130,000, but they're losing 338,000 on that vehicle. So the CEO got $137 million raise. So we think that, Jim and Mary got paid way too much as a yearly bonus. Well, Jim Farley's $20-some million, and Mary from GM, the CEO of GM, she got paid, what was it, in the 30-some, about $38 million as a bonus. A lot of people are reacting negatively to that, but that's nothing compared to $137 million Lucid CEO bonus.
That's big
for being the biggest loser on the market. So yes, the UAW is making sure that they thus far have the biggest impact possible with the least amount of people having to strike. So what's going on? Kumar Galhotra, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I mean all respect towards him, has basically said that they've reached the limit for what Ford can offer. So Kumar Galhotra is a big shot at Ford. He's the head of one of the units because Ford's now divided into 3 units, the EV section or division. You've got the classic, gasoline section division, and you've got the fleet division. So he's saying that they've reached a maximum point for what they can offer. After that, they're not going to be able to survive. So it looks like we're now at, we could say I wouldn't even call this the midpoint of the strike, because we're still far off from what the UAW wants. And you've got Ford saying, we've hit a wall. We've sent, 7 or 8 different offers, each one better than the last, and this is as far as we can go. Now, I'd like to I'm going to get a great slide to show the impact of this. You got to keep me on track and make sure I actually pull through these slides, Marie. Otherwise, all that work I get for collecting this data goes out the window. So let's see here. We've got a good slide showing what's going on for the overall effects of the strike. And if I can actually find it, because I've got really not the greatest eyesight here, try to get this up. So we've got how it's affected each, how many workers. So we'll flip through that.
Some bullets here.
That's a little picture of little factories in the background. Let's get to the next section. We'll get back to that, but we've got the UAW saying that the Ford transmission plant may have to start laying off people because, the Super Duties, that's a 10-speed, 10R80 transmission, just like you have it for the F-150, you have it for the Expedition, you have it for the Ford Ranger, basically all Ford's big vehicles. And that transmission, well, if you've closed down the Expedition and Super Duty and Navigator factory, well, you're needing a lot less transmissions. So that means layoffs are going to occur at the transmission factory. So the 2 main sticking points right now, which are causing things to really be at a standstill and not move forward, are increased retirement security. So they want more retirement security and the inclusion of future joint venture EV battery plants. And they want to guarantee and ensure they've got jobs. Now, GM has already reportedly agreed to the latter term, but thus far, Ford has shunned making such a move, instead preferring to allow employees at those plants to decide for themselves if they want to be represented by the union. Now, so we're talking about the EV plants. Ford saying, let's let workers at the EV plants decide if they want to be unionized, because these are new plants, and the union is saying, well, no, we want those to be, guaranteed union jobs right off the bat. We want to know, basically, they probably want to figure out how many jobs and protect those jobs and make sure they're union jobs. So according to the automaker for Ford, a grand total of 13 of its plants are interconnected to the Kentucky plant. The Rawsonville Components Plant, Dearborn Diversified Manufacturing Plant, the Cleveland Engine Plant, the Sharonville Transmission Plant, the Chicago Stamping Plant, Buffalo Stamping Plant. So these are all plants that are being affected by the Kentucky plant being closed down. We also have the Sterling Axle Plant, the Chihuahua Engine Plant, okay, can't get that one right. Chihuahua. So if someone knows how to say that one correctly, it kind of looks like
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
Like a dog.
It cannot possibly be Chihuahua plant. Gosh, I want to work there. That sounds like a fun place.
Chihuahua dog, I guess it's coming from Mexico, so
a region,
the city. So
yeah,
they name it after, and the plant too.
Yeah. Well, I like our version more. We got the Windsor Engine Plant, the MAP Integrated Stamping Plant, and the Dearborn Stamping Plant. And you also have the Louisville Assembly Plant and Ohio Assembly Plants. So those are big plants right there, which could signal the production of vehicles at those later two facilities being affected. So if you've got a vehicle, and we're talking about trucks, so trucks could very much be affected. Now, that the trucks exactly that could be affected, the Ford Escape, the Lincoln Corsair, the E-Series, Super Duty, and medium duty trucks could also be affected soon. And remember, the F-150 runs on the 10R80 transmission. So if they actually close down the transmission plant, then we really have Ford having to deal with a ton of layoffs because there just wouldn't be a capacity. Then we'd really be affected for production of so many vehicles at Ford, because so many vehicles use the 10-speed transmission. Now, Ford recently had to lay off 600 workers at the Michigan Assembly Plant. The expanded strike at the Chicago Assembly Plant has thus far resulted in 243 layoffs at the Chicago Stamping Plant and 184 at the Lima Engine Plant in Ohio, as well as 391 at the Livonia Transmission Plant and 133 at the Sterling Axle Plant and 372 at the Cleveland Engine Plant. So these are layoffs. This isn't affecting the UAW's budget for the strike. It's not digging into their $827 million. Ridgeview, howdy ho, the WB, thank you so much for joining. 4 high, 4 low. Love seeing the regulars pass by in the chat. Now, if you're watching the show, please, if you're watching it live, drop a live comment. Say hi to our community members. Throw in some of your knowledge. If you don't like Ford or GM or Stellantis, say why. If you love them, say why. Talk about your favorite models and how your current ownership and previous ownership experience has been going. We want your comments. If you're not watching live, please drop them in the comments box. And if you are a regular live watcher, when these videos get cut up into mini episodes, please help the channel out. Just go and open them up. Let them run in the background if you don't mind, if you have endless amounts of internet, and drop a little comment. Say hi to the group, because that's how we're going to get this information out to more people. And when we get to talking about price protection, that's where you'll know why I want so many people, so many more people to be watching our videos. So you've got 1,920 layoffs thus far just at Ford. GM's having to dig into some major layoffs as well. So you've got Ford and its counterparts are definitely feeling the effects of this strike, even though it's not costing much to the UAW, and it's impacting about 30% of the automotive suppliers as well. Remember, 2 weeks ago, GM and Stellantis got hit right in their auto parts suppliers' back. So it's that's not going to kick them forward. That's going to hold them back. It's going to hold back owners of these vehicles. It's going to make ownership unpleasant and difficult for some people.
Yeah, and we hope that not that much people will have that trouble with parts, waiting for parts to go to work, and
So frustrating
it's,
when we need our vehicles. We need them. They're a survival tool for modern
it's worse than
living.
ever.
It's
Because if you only wait for your new car, but you still have one, that's not that bad. It's the people who really need it right now, and with the parts, we have the same thing. We need it right now.
yeah, being people that will work in and around cities, taking their vehicle in a city. Certain cities have decent transportation, but for us, if we didn't have our vehicle, we almost couldn't get to work. In my parents' area, without a vehicle, you cannot get to work whatsoever.
Not get to grocery store. You
Yeah.
cannot do.
You need a vehicle.
a
A
lot of
vehicle.
stuff. You won't
Having
go
your
that far.
vehicle taken away is like being a farmer and having your rifle and shotgun taken away. It's just not feasible.
Special comparison.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, governments. Some people need things to survive, and we don't all want to, rely and have faith that, the government
Rent
will
coming
take
in.
care of us like we're children. And you know what? Taking care of individuals like their children using tax dollars is extremely expensive. I'm not going to get into rant because then I'll get to talking about whether it's justifiable and even ethical for tax dollars, our money, to go outside of the country because it's our money. It should only ever benefit us. But I'll move on.